So this is simply energy as it is. This is energy in this form. This is energy appearing as people sitting on seats, energy as appearing as a room, energy as sound, what you can hear, what you feel, experiences, feelings, senses, thoughts. Everything is simply what I call energy. Some people would call it oneness, wholeness. I like the word energy. It has a sort of sense of impersonality about it. It is simply energy, which is absolutely boundless and is everything that is and is not. So it's a wild, boundless, free, floating energy, and it has nothing influences it. There's no ideas about God, consciousness, right or wrong, this or that. It simply is completely and utterly free. And because it's free, it can also be limited. Energy can be anything. If it couldn't be limited, it couldn't be free. So it can apparently arise as a contracted energy, something that's contracted and within. And this, when this contracted energy arises for the human being, what directly arises with that sense of contraction is a sudden sense of there being something in here. Suddenly there's something in the body. And it's like an identity takes form. Suddenly there's a sense of there being something, and it then becomes a someone. I am in here, I live in here. And I am something, and everything out there is something else that's happening to me. So I live in my own experience of what's happening. And when that arises, when that sense of there being a separate identity in here, a separate I, a separate self, a separate me, when that sense of identity arises, what arises with it is the story of me, and the clock starts ticking. Directly that sense of identity arises, so a story begins. Because within here, it feels as though there is someone living in a story. And as the child grows, then it begins to believe that it was born, and it will live, and it will die. So there's a story there. There's already a feeling of a story. The other thing that arises, which may not be noticed because it becomes the way of living in that world, is that the me, the I, lives in a dualistic experience. It lives in here, and everything that happens to it is somehow apart from it and comes to it as a separate thing that comes to it. So it lives and grows in the experience of dualism. Everything it experiences seems to be experienced as a subject-object experience. So it grows up and becomes to believe that, first of all, I am real. I am a real person. And from that comes the idea that the world is real, that my experiences are real, and the sense of separation is real. That's the dilemma for the me. It believes everything that's happening to it and everything about it is real. And so that sense of being in a separate world is what is accepted by most people without question. It seems normal. For some people, there's an openness to people. There's a sense of a sensitivity in people. They begin to feel that feeling, that sense, that experience of being separate is somehow unsatisfying. There's something that's not satisfying about it. It's like a sense of there being something missing, something not quite right. It's not fulfilling. It's dissatisfying. When me sees a tree or the sky or another person, they don't see them in a natural way. They see them as something that's separate. They live in that sense of separation. They are that sense of separation. Me is separation. Me is dualism. Me is that feeling of being apart. And that is dissatisfying. And somewhere people look for a deeper answer. They look for something deeper. And so they might turn to religion or therapy or the idea of enlightenment to try and find an answer. The difficulty is, the problem, the dilemma, the great dilemma is that the me can only experience everything in a separate, dualistic way. That's how it exists. That's what its existence is, to live in that dualistic way. And then the problem is that the seeker, who's looking for fulfillment, is trying to find another object. It grows up and learns how to live in the world, and it grows up and believes it has free will and choice. So it then starts to look for that which it longs for, as though it could find something that it can have for itself. All energy that comes out of me is in a sense a way of trying to satisfy the me in one way or another, money, power or whatever, and the seeking for enlightenment. It's all the same energy. It's for me, I want this, I need this. This is what I need to be fulfilled. And so it always, from that point of view, because there's a separation, then the me searches for another object called fulfillment. What we're talking about tonight, what we're sharing together, first of all, we're in a way illuminating the possibility, because this is only a suggestion. We're illuminating the possibility that, first of all, the me is a construct which is artificial. It's illusory. It's an illusory construct, but people become so convinced about its reality that they don't see that. And the other thing that we're sharing together is the possibility, well, out of that sense of being separate and looking for another object called fulfillment, that whole effort to make that happen has to be utterly futile. It can only be futile because what the me, what the seeker longs for, it can never know. What the seeker longs for, it can never have. Because it's looking in a finite world for the infinite. And it can never find that. And so, we can talk together about the way in which me takes form and how it believes in itself. We can talk together about the wonderful futility of all seeking. But in a sense, all that has some sort of, that there's something that can happen there. The beliefs that build up in the me about its own construct can crumble, given a totally different way of seeing it. But the most liberating thing that can happen in these meetings, when there's an openness to the possibility of something that is beyond choice, belief, or effort, when there's that openness to that, then there can be a melting away of the sense of separation and contraction out into the whole boundless beingness. Nothing is useful because the seeker needs something to hold on to construct some sort of path. That won't happen here because there's nothing on offer here to the seeker. In fact, I go as far as to say that it's obviously recognised from this point of view that there isn't a separate person in this room, because it's illusory anyway. So in that sense, there's nothing for sale. But I noticed that talking seems to happen.
So there's coming up a question about energy. Is it always vibrant?
No, it is everything. Because it's everything, it's not always anything.
Yes.
It doesn't live by rules, it doesn't have to always be vibrant.
Yes.
It can be dead and flat and muddy and all. This is I like the word energy because, but for me, so that it's very clear, that covers everything that we know and don't know. Everything. So it's not a vibrant energy rushing around making everybody alive. Seeking separation is energy in that form. It's not. There's nothing wrong with seeking or separation. It seems to be what happens, and it is energy in that form. There's an energy of seeking, and there's an energy of not seeking, whatever. But it isn't an energy that has any sense of good. This is not a spiritual message. This is not about good, nothing to do with goodness.
And for me that would mean that nothing is really dead. Nothing is dead. Everything is alive.
Yes, dead is dead energy.
Yes, so everything lives.
No, energy is also dead. This is dead. This is death.
So the wall is alive as
This is
well.
death and life. Yeah, the wall is energy. Walling.
So it's dead and alive at the same time.
It is and it isn't. It's both real and it's unreal. That's a great dilemma for me, because me only lives in the real reality. It lives in the real. It can only experience the real. What it experiences seems real, whereas the wall is real and unreal.
Would you say there are different grades of
No, not at
aliveness?
all. No. The wall is just as divine as you and a tulip. They are all simply the one, the beloved. And me would like there to be grades in hierarchies, but that's me.
Would you say that there is a difference between being conscious and being me? Or is consciousness just
Consciousness
an
is
aspect of energy?
Well, consciousness is within the story. Consciousness is another word for knowing. Conscious of, I know self-consciousness, I know I am a person. Consciousness of the wall is knowing the wall, being conscious of it. So that is all part of the story of me, and it comes together with knowing and awareness. Awareness of the wall, awareness of sitting on a seat. The self comes here and sits on a seat and is aware of sitting on a seat, and that's how it remains separate. The whole mechanism, the whole energy of awareness, and it is only energy, everything is that which feeds the whole sense of being separate. Consciousness is the same animal, it's the same energy, it's the same function. Consciousness of the wall, awareness of the wall, is the same function within the story of me. When me is no more, then there is no more consciousness or awareness.
That's amazing.
There's nothing that needs to be apart. There's nothing that needs to be aware anymore. There is only what is, which is indescribable and not knowable. Consciousness is about knowing. That's why it's so attractive to the seeker. The whole idea of awareness, self-inquiry, all those things are incredibly attractive to the seeker, because the one thing the seeker is, the me is find of more than anything else, is not knowing. It wants to know, it learns to know. As it goes up, it learns to know. Knowing is power. Awareness is power. It thinks, it dreams.
And feeling, I can also feel. Feeling is there.
Feeling, well, feeling is feeling. Feeling is just feeling, like a feeling of being warm. It's just there. All the time there is a me, then the me is aware of feeling warm, and therefore keeps separate from it. And that's what's dissatisfying. So the me really is never totally alive. The me is a little bit alive. in a dusty, boring old world as it grows up. It thinks it knows the world. It's such a joke. It thinks it knows the world. And by knowing it, it makes the world say it thinks. This is a dangerous message for me. This is the most dangerous message me can hear. Because it's about the absence of me.
What about the story of me? The story
of me is another make-up. Me dreams that it's in a story. I'm in a story, and this is a make-up.
I'm in the middle of the question. What is the story of Tony Parsons? Is it still existing? The story of me?
There was apparently, if you like to pretend that there was a past, then in the apparent past there was an apparent Tony Parsons who lived in the story of Tony Parsons.
Okay.
I won't tell you all of it, it's really quite boring. There are some exciting bits in it. Story is in time, essentially for me, feels that the story is real, I'm real, and I'm in a real story.
What do you think is the relationship between the body and the me that you're talking about?
Well, all the time there's a sense of a me in the story, then the me believes it is real, and it believes that the body it lives in is its body. Part of the reason for that is that the sense of separation is not a belief or a thought, it's actually a molecular sense, like if you're very frightened then the whole body is frightened. Well, in a very subtle way, the whole body, all the cells in the body feel separate, therefore the whole body feels as though it's a me, it's my body, I live in this body, so it's my body. When me collapses, the body is just another arising. It's just energy body like all.
Yeah.
And it has no more significance than the wall.
I was thinking more of the body before the me was a...
Oh, well, there's a tiny child, the body is just boundless energy. There isn't any sense of identity, so that there's a complete boundlessness.
Yeah,
the body is just another...
outside other people.
Sorry?
I mean, so a very young baby would be just like an object as far as other people are concerned.
Oh, well, I don't know about other, as far as the me is concerned, everything else is an object. But there's no sense of awareness or identity in a tiny child, therefore everything is simply boundless. There isn't anything in there that knows that boundlessness, it's just boundless.
How is life when you don't feel separate or when you're not separate anymore?
How is life?
How is your life? How do you
I don't have a life. There's no life, no one here that has a life. And there's no way of describing what that is like. It can't be known. It's immeasurable. It can't be known. And it's totally and utterly ordinary and natural. It's not special. There's nothing special about being everything. There's just everything. Because there's no longer anyone there to be special.
What's the difference between your state and the state of small child?
I know I'm not in a state. Me experiences states of boredom or whatever, or happiness. Those are separate states that seem to happen in a story. This is the next thing that happened in the story, then another state, then another state. When there is no longer anyone, there's no state. There just is life happening.
So how about the small child?
Well, that's the same thing.
So there is no difference?
No. Unless you be as little children.
Always wondering about love. I mean,
Love is...
if I feel a heart connection, then it doesn't feel separate. Then I don't feel separate.
No.
But this is still a story, isn't it? Or,
No, love is well, unconditional love is all there is.
but it can be also, I don't know, boredom or
Well, oh yeah, well, there are all sorts of... But all the time there's a me, then there are different states. When there's no me, there's simply unconditional love, which is what this is. Whee! It's just that. It's like, you asked what it's like. It's like living in a love affair, but there's no one in it. It's this. The floor, the wall, that body is simply wholeness. It's simply love in that expression. So there isn't anything that isn't. So that's the freedom of it. There's nothing looking for anything anywhere because everything is that.
Thank you.
So Tony, the whole idea of freedom and love and death and life, they're all just ideas that are part of the story.
For the me they are, yeah. Certainly for the me, death and life and love are simply other ideas and states that might be grasped by me. When there's no one, all of that we've just mentioned simply doesn't exist anymore. There are no ideas about anything because there's nobody to have any ideas. It's just life.
So the whole longing for hope,
Oh no,
longing
it's all
for-
over. It's all over.
Yeah.
It's just over. There just is this. That which is longed for is the only thing that's in this room. Everything that's happening to everybody in this room is that. But because there's an awareness there of what's happening, that's what keeps that love apart. And so that's the unfulfilling. When that suddenly just drops away, there is just that. There isn't anyone experiencing oneness or wholeness or knowing love. There just is love.
Yeah. Just comes across as noise somehow.
Absolutely.
As noise, the longing, these ideas, these concepts is kind
Oh,
of
well,
like for the me, it's...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what the me longs for. But unfortunately turns it into a thing that it can have by trying to understand what it is. I mean, what's going on here largely is the me trying to understand, what we're talking about, as though it's something, once it's understood, it can have it, it never will.
You said everything is unconditional love. How can you tell that not everything is just randomness?
Oh, unconditional love is terror and ugliness. It's unconditional. It doesn't gather in one thing and reject another. It's unconditional love. They can't be comprehended by me. It's completely beyond the comprehension.
When you say it's unconditional love, then it's something, but it can't be something
It's
else.
it's only words trying to express that which can't be said.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Really, basically, all of this is like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking in words about something that can't be spoken of.
Mm-hmm.
But the words point to that rather than point to the idea that you can have it, which is what teaching is about. The majority of what goes on in this world is a teaching about you being able to get something or becoming worthy or learning how to become worthy or unconditional love, which you never will be, by the way.
So actually it's hopeless.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's wonderfully hopeless.
Thanks.
seems to be like playing Mikado with words. So
Sorry?
first, you know the game Mikado?
Yeah, this isn't playing with words. If you're only interested in the words, you're not.
Well, the first one who talks has lost. Anyway. So, what would you say? What is your true nature?
Oh, I don't have a true nature. This is not about finding your true nature. That's with the birds. That's in the circle. That's in the spiritual circle. Finding your true nature. It's again, the me trying to find something called my true nature. There isn't.
Okay. You can see it like this.
This is responding to a question. It's not trying to be clever. It's just pointing to something that's beyond the concept of finding.
Yes.
Not just words.
Yeah.
It's something more than words can.
Yeah. It's a construct anyway. You may use it to go beyond the construct.
I'm not using anything. That's what's happening.
Yeah. Anyway.
What's about the experience of a trauma?
Sorry?
Trauma? Is
What
it
about trauma?
Yes, if you have the experience of a trauma, is it just because of the me that you could get problems because of the trauma? Maybe if you have the experience as a tiny little child.
I didn't quite get that, but the trauma, whatever state the me is in, has nothing to do with its collapse.
Funny?
Whether if the self is experiencing a neurotic trauma, then that's what's happening. It doesn't prevent the collapse or the sudden absence of that self. I'm not sure what your question is actually.
My question is, if you're a little tiny child and your energy is maybe still boundless, and you have the experience of a trauma.
No, well if you have an experience of a trauma, then there's a me there. Me, the self, experiences trauma.
So it's just possible if you have the me to experience a trauma.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. That was the question.
The greatest trauma for me is to be separate. And then everything else comes from that.
Hello, Tony. I have a question about the distinction in some traditions. They say that the self, or however you may describe it, is open space. And therefore, some could say, isn't it good, higher? The open space, you know what I mean, right? You talked about this motion or this energy, self-energy, and on the other hand, someone could say from another tradition that the open space is somehow greater than the energy which takes place in it.
So this is not traditional. What's being said here is that this has absolutely no respect for what people call traditional spiritualism at all, because all of that's based on the false assumption that there are hierarchies. So what you're talking about is hierarchies, energy and space being fine or at a higher level. The me, the self, lives in hierarchy, lives in opposites. It thrives in the idea that there's a higher and a lower level. In fact, at quite an early age, or when the child, when it's growing up, adolescence, becoming a young adult, psychologically what the me does, what the self does, is to split itself into two, higher self and a lower self, because it learns about high aspiration from those around it. So it takes on the psychological sense that somehow the higher self is better than the lower self. And out of that comes traditional teaching, because I think you'll find most traditional teachings are about hierarchy and attaining a higher level of spirituality. All of that is a complete dream, based on the false assumption that there is someone who is real and there are levels of spirituality which you can attain. There aren't any levels, all there is what is. There's no truth, there's nothing right, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing better, there's nothing worse, there is only what is. There's nothing wrong with seeking in separation, it's energy arising as seeking separation. But directly the mind, the spiritual mind, seeking mind gets hold of it, it turns it into a story about levels of spirituality. That's all it can understand. And most of the teachers that talk about levels of spirituality are usually at a very high level, that's what I think.
Tony, I find it very strange. The greatest trauma is being separate.
Sorry?
The greatest trauma, you said, is being separate.
But the moment of separation. Usually most people don't even remember it.
And at the same time, everyone is so fearful of giving up that separateness.
Absolutely, that's the second trauma.
It's totally contradictory.
It's the most frightening thing. This is the most frightening message for the self. It's about the end, the death of the self. But it's only an apparent death, it's not real. Nothing actually happens. There's no such thing as liberation or a separate secret or anything. That's all within the idea of the story of me. There's nothing to liberate. But within the story, of course, the me thinks liberation is something that will happen to them. That's the other problem. The self puts off liberation by believing it's going to happen.
So I would say liberation is actually giving up the idea of separation.
Well, no, it's not giving up the idea. I'm afraid I'm very sorry about this. Separation is far more than an idea or a belief. It's energetic. If it was an idea, you'd just think I'm liberated and you'd be liberated. It'd be wonderful.
That contraction may be caused by fearful traumas?
So
this contraction of energy, is that maybe caused by fearful traumas?
It's not caused by anything. Nothing is caused by anything. It just is what apparently happens. Don't forget there isn't anything that's real that's caused by something else. Everything is only apparent. So energy is real and unreal. And it apparently arises in the body and gives a sense of there being self. It's not an idea. An idea is I'm good looking or I'm not good looking. That's so superficial. This is strong, powerfully held energy.
So the contraction is not only in the brain, it's somewhere in the whole body.
Yeah.
Would you agree, or is it a picture to say that the contracted energy, what you call the ego, is a kind of puppet on strings?
Yeah.
It feels like a puppet on strings, and there is no free will, there is no rebirth, and there is no karma.
Absolutely.
Good, thank you.
No, the whole idea of karma and rebirth and all of that is simply based on the false assumption that there is someone who is living in time. It's only in the head.
What about illness? Sometimes.
Well, illness is illness. Illness is something that happens, apparently.
But wouldn't you say that when people lead a very stressful life or have stressful thinkings, that this can cause illness in your body because of your mind?
It seems like that. This is what appears to happen. It's not real. There's nothing that's real. But certainly stress in life seems to bring about possibly an illness. So, well, that's what's happening, apparently.
But I think it's quite logical, isn't it?
Sorry?
But I think it's quite logical.
Yeah, this message is not logical or sensible. I hope you realise that. Maybe you shouldn't have given it. This is not a logical, this is beyond the ordinary logic of the self, this message. But certainly what you're saying seems to make sense in the story. In the story, stress seems to bring illness. That's what happens.
But it isn't the truth, is it?
Oh, there isn't anything that's true as far as this is concerned. There's no truth. All there is what is and is not.
Okay. So it's
this is not about trying to cure something or making a better world in which there wouldn't be any stress. The stress is the beloved. Stress, illness is oneness. Stress is energy, being ill. There's no right or wrong. There isn't. We're not trying to make something better or worse.
So you can't avoid it if it's going to happen.
There isn't anybody or anything that can avoid anything. There is only what seems to happen.
But there are people who can cure themselves by...
That's possible, yes, so what? That's what also can happen. Curing apparent illness can also happen. This message is simply not, acceptable in the normal world. You can't. There's nothing here you can take home. There's nothing you can't take anything home from here. There's nothing you can get hold of and have for yourself. But what's wonderful is also you can't get this right or wrong. It doesn't matter what you do, because all there is what is. What you seem to do, even if you think you choose to do it, is simply what is. All there is what is. And the amazing thing is that that's the one thing that the seeker longs for, what is. The seeker longs to drop the whole business of trying to find an answer and simply live in what is. And what is never leaves you. What is never leaves the seeker. The beloved never leaves you. This is the one constant lover. It's the only constant lover there is. It's all there is. Thank you very much.